Traders, today's video is going to give you the most comprehensive deep dive into all of the calendars that you have access to on TradingView. So sit back because you are going to learn about our economic calendar, our earnings calendar, and our dividends calendar. But most importantly, we're going to teach you not only how to use these, but what they are and where to find them. So at this very moment, we are on tradingview.com. There is a button at the top called Products. We hover our mouse over Products, and we can very quickly get to calendars and then any of the 3 calendars listed here. We're going to walk you through each of these calendars, but before we do that, let us head to our super charts and let us show you where you can find the calendars on the TradingView super charts. Now, down here at the bottom right, look at our mouse right here, it says calendars. If we click this button, we can quite literally review our economic earnings. This is also earnings revenue, we'll explain, and dividend calendars. This means we can chart all the markets we wish to chart, the crypto, forex, equities, anything that we're interested in, while simultaneously going through these critical, must-watch, super important events that are happening on these specific calendar days. Now, we're going to show you the calendar from our homepage, but it's very important that we state that everything we show you in this video also applies to opening up our calendars from the chart. So the first thing we're going to walk you through is the economic calendar. Now, the economic calendar are for those of you who specifically follow macroeconomic events around the world. You might be trading stocks and you want to know how GDP is going. You might be trading oil and you want to learn about all of the economic events happening in oil. You could be trading Forex and you want to track various Forex pairs across different countries. The economic calendar is here for you. Of course, in this video, we're also going to cover the earnings and dividends calendar, which are specifically for stocks. But for now, let's focus on the economic calendar. The first thing you're going to see on the calendar is that it says calendar. You just can't miss it. Next, you want to pay attention to the data and buttons that's presented to you up here at the top. So look at our mouse up here at the top. We want to teach you what this is. First of all, if we click this Today button, our economic calendar will instantly take us to that point in time. Now, we are recording this video on Monday, August 19th. If we click Today, you can see that our economic calendar adjusts just to make sure that this day is specific to us front and center. In addition, you can see here that we can click this calendar button as well, and we can create a custom calendar view as needed. Now, by default, we're recording this video on Monday, August 19th. We are looking at August 19th through August 25th. We have these dates selected. The starting point's blue, the ending point's blue. All the days in between are slightly darker gray, and we can see right here the specific text for us. So we're looking at the week of economic events. What's really important now is that you see that you have these days that you can drill into. So we have Monday selected, but we could go to Tuesday, economic calendar adjusts, Wednesday, economic calendar adjusts, Thursday, Friday, you get the idea. So you have these daily cards that you can tap into rather quickly and see what's happening on that day. You can see the country, the time, and of course you can expand these economic events in more detail to learn exactly what has happened in the historical moments of this economic indicator, as well as seeing a forecast. We're going to dive into that in more detail, but we want to make sure you fully understand these key buttons up here at the top. So you'll notice we have an American flag selected there, and that's because at this moment we're only looking at economic events in the US, and we can see that here. Now we're going to exit out of this and just show you that you can look at economic events across the country, and you can select as many countries as you please to track specific economic events for those countries. So maybe we want USA, Canada, let's do Norway. Why don't we pick another country of sorts? How about Turkey? And let's go ahead and do Australia, India, Singapore, Taiwan. How's that? You can also now see all of the countries that we've selected right here. We're going to click apply. And the first thing you'll notice here is not only have our flags here changed to show all the countries we're looking at, but also now look at this. We're getting economic data in for these countries around the globe. We've quite literally just built our own custom economic calendar specifically for the countries we care about. You can do this yourself just as we demonstrated. In fact, why don't we clear this? So we just cleared out the countries, and let's just click G20, so the top 20 economies. Let's click apply, and here we are. We've got the G20 selected. Now South Korea is included, France, Brazil, Germany. What a beautiful way to follow all of the markets. And here's what's also very interesting as you get started is you'll notice that as you use the economic calendar in more detail, you're going to get these wonderful colorings to let you know when something's coming up. In fact, it quite literally says coming soon. We've added South Korea to our economic calendar. Consumer confidence is coming soon. We're going to dive into how to follow these economic events just a few moments, but we want to make sure we finish this key point up. Now, we are recording this video from New York City, so naturally we want our time zone to be set to New York, but we show you this feature because depending on where you are in the world, you may want to set your time zone accordingly. Let's keep this to New York City at this moment. Another great feature at the top here is that you can download this widget or grab the code to embed it on your site, app, or platform. Just click Get Widget. Again, embed code, more on that later. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we've shown you the basics of the calendar. Now let's dive into the key details around the economic calendar because this is where things get really good. Okay, let's click today because let's go back to today's events. Now, what's very important about the economic calendar that you should be totally prepared for is the way you read it. So first of all, pay attention to these little bars here. Some of them have one colored bar, some of them have two, and perhaps we can find one with three. There it is, three. And these show you what the market thinks about these events. So if you see one colored bar, it's a low importance event. If you see two colored bars, it's a medium importance event. If you see three colored bars, it's of the highest importance according to the markets. You can hover your mouse just as we are doing to see that key detail. In addition, if you found an event you want to track, by the way, you may think a one bar event is actually of high importance. Makes total sense. This economic calendar is yours. You can do what you wish with it. But if you found an event that you want to track more closely, how about we actually track this Fed speech? So Fed Waller speech, this is an economic event because it means a Federal Reserve member, last name Waller, is making a speech. Well, once you found that event, you can click the drop down to learn more about it. You can read exactly what's going on with this specific event. You're going to get a helpful link that will take you directly to the source about that specific event. You can launch a chart to chart key details, see a symbol overview for those details, and probably one of the best tools, add it to your calendar. This means if you have a calendar that you want to get notifications on for this specific event, go add it to your calendar. One click and you will add this to your calendar. So this is a very important tool to understand so that you can go deeper into these economic events. Which, by the way, brings up another very important point, and that is that you can filter this down in more detail. Now, recall that we said there's a way to look at low important events, medium important events, and the highest important events. Well, there's also a button up here at the top that quite literally only shows you the highest important events. We've clicked it once, now it's off, click it, turn it back on. This means only economic events with three colored bars will appear before our eyes. Let's turn it off though for now because we want to make sure you see just how much rich data is here for your consumption, planning, research, and analysis. And guess what? It goes deeper on the economic calendar. There's a button here that says all categories. Recall earlier in the video that we said you might be an oil trader, or you might be a stock trader or a bond trader. Well, this is where it gets even better because now you can go deeper in the way you want to see the economic calendar. Recall we've got our top 20 economies, and how about now we only look at bond data? Well, now we've got our top 20 economies with all of their bond data shown to us and only bond data. If you've been following markets lately, you know about the carry trade and how in Japan they recently raised interest rates. This is interesting. You now have a direct look at the next 3-month treasury bill auction in Japan, just like that. But perhaps you are maybe more interested in GDP. Well, you can go ahead and click GDP. Looks like there's no event. Oh, nope, there are some events coming up. And now we can track the GDP events that are coming up this week in Argentina and Mexico. This might be interesting if you trade these equity ETFs related to Argentina or Mexico, or even if you're trading Forex, you can specifically track GDP. Let's go back to all categories because for this video, we want you to get a feel for how much is available to you. Let's talk about now how to read these specific data points. Okay, let's go ahead and click today. Now, what you're going to see on the economic calendar that we've been going through are a few key things, and we're going to walk you through all of them. Let's actually now, just to make this a little more simple, switch back to just the USA and click apply. Now that we've clicked apply on the USA economic calendar, we'll see here that there was an economic event called CB Leading Index month over month. So right here, we can see the name of the event. We can also see the importance. We also see the country that it's specifically applicable to and the time. So we've got the basics. We know what it is, where it happened, and the time it was released. Now it's time to draw your attention to the really important columns here called actual, forecast, and prior. So what exactly does this mean? Well, you have to understand this is where things get even more important because the actual means that was the number that came in. So this event has already been reported. It is after 10 a.m. here in New York City. We can see it's called the CB Leading Index, which means the Conference Board Leading Economic Index is a predictive variable that anticipates or leads turning points in the business cycle by around 7 months. So very interesting. You got the Conference Board Leading Economic Index. Very interesting. It includes average weekly hours in manufacturing, average weekly initial claims for unemployment insurance. So it's really combining some very important economic indicators into one. And you can see here it says actual minus 0.6%. So it did turn downward. What's so interesting is look at the forecast. The forecast now, so if the actual is the number that was reported at this exact time, so this is the number that they literally reported. This is the fact. This is what happened. This is what their data showed. Well, the forecast is what people thought it would be. So there are economists out there, planners, there are managers all over the world who actually publish forecasts. Businesses, of course, do this as well. And those forecasts are often shown on economic calendars like ours. So we can see the forecast here says 0.3%. So here it is right here, 0.3%. Then prior is just what it sounds like. This is the prior data point. So now we know three just so important. This is just fantastic for you to frame how these economic events work because check this out. We know that this CB leading index, which is meant to predict specific economic conditions, people thought that it would be a negative 0.3% rating this month, which is a contraction. The prior month, it was minus 0.2%. So it's been contracting now for at least 2 months. Well, that's never great news. But the actual data point came in at negative 0.6%. So not only do we know the prior month was negative, and this month was negative, right here, actual, but we also know it was worse than people expected. Wow, this is the type of information that you can glean from this economic calendar. The best part about this is let's say you were interested in really analyzing one of these data points in more detail, just click launch chart and you can chart this information. If you want to read more about it, click see overview. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, you now have an understanding of our economic calendar. You probably have a good feel for this. Go get started. Now let's move to the earnings calendar. This part of the video is for all the equity traders out there. However, you never know. There are Forex traders and economists and macro thinkers and investment managers. Earnings matters to them as well because you probably want to pay attention to what Apple's saying or Google or other leading companies just to get a feel from a big picture. So the first thing we do, TradingView.com, we hover our mouse over products, calendars. You can see the earnings calendars right here. We click earnings. You can even see here that the earnings calendar is already selected. Now, similar to the economic calendar, you want to apply the same framework. We can click today. It centers on today's earnings reports. We can also customize the specific dates we want to look at, just like the economic calendar. We can see the dates we're looking at here. We can click into specific days. So you can see, just like that, we can see who's reporting. In fact, why don't we just go to Wednesday? Let's see who's reporting. And look at this, TJX companies, Zoom Video, Macy's. You can always find an interesting company reporting. Snowflake, Urban Outfitters, Williams-Sonoma. It's all right here. Now it's time for us to teach you how to read this earnings calendar. Please do keep in mind that this is very similar to what we said about the economic calendar, just that now you can sort earnings by countries. So we were just looking at US companies only. Okay, get ready. We're going to click top 20 economies. We're going to click apply. Here we go. It's going to load up a lot. Wow. Now we've got Japanese companies coming through, German companies coming through, French companies coming through. This is a true global look at all of the earnings reports. So if you're interested in tracking all markets across various countries with the TradingView earnings calendar, you can also do that. Now, for simplicity, we are going to take this back to USA. We're just going to look at US companies for the time being. Let's go back to Wednesday because guess what? We're all familiar with Zoom and we can see Zoom reports right here. We specifically now want to teach you how to read this specific event, which is Zoom earnings. So first of all, there are two symbols you're going to see. You're going to see a rising sun. Think about it, early morning, sunrise, and a moon. Think about what happens when the moon is out. It's getting dark, the sun's down, and these signify two key things. This means they are reporting earnings before the open. The sun is rising. It's happening before the market open. This moon means that they are reporting after the close. The sun's setting, the moon is coming out, the night is beginning. So this is how you know if someone is reporting before the market opens and after the market opens. You can just look and see the sun or moon to immediately know. You can also see the times here. So actually it looks like Target on Wednesday reports at 6:30 a.m. Well, if you are planning to follow Target earnings, you better set your alarm clock because this is an early release, but nevertheless is quite important for you to note in detail if your plan is to trade or invest in Target. You got to know when they report to be fully planned. But as mentioned, we're focusing on Zoom, so we can see it's happening after the market close. We've got their logo here. We got their stock ticker, the name of the company. And now it's time to take you into some more key details. Just like the economic calendar, you've got some really important information here. This says estimate EPS, or earnings per share. This means that people who work in the industry for companies, forecasters, people who specifically track what a company is going to do, are estimating that they're going to have $1.21 in earnings per share. So if you own one share of Zoom, you're entitled to $1.21 in earnings. You can now also see when they report, you're going to get the actual, the surprise, and you can see its market cap in real time. Remember, the surprise is essentially the difference between what people think is going to happen and what actually happened. So why don't we go back to today's report, and we can actually see some companies on this fine Monday morning reported before the market opened. In fact, EL, Estee Lauder here, reported at 6:46 a.m. in the morning. They estimated that they would report 26 cents per share. They actually reported 64 cents per share, a massive earnings beat. That is profitability at the core. They surprised everyone, and you can see the difference is a 141% difference between what economists or investors thought would happen and what actually happened. And now with this earnings calendar, you can dive right in. So you can see here, we've got Estee Lauder right here. And if we wish, we can just sort of track this earnings report as needed. In addition, we can go to revenue to get an even deeper deep dive into the earnings report, because whereas earnings shows us the earnings per share, revenue is going to show us the estimated revenue amount and the actual revenue amount. This is always very insightful so you can track the difference between profitability and revenue growth. So while they were profitable by a large amount, they really only grew revenue by about 1%. Hey, at this size, doing $3 billion in revenue, that's still a considerable amount of revenue increase. And you can see the surprise compared to what people thought their revenue would grow like and what the actual revenue would grow like. Now, as you use this economic calendar for all of your equities, keep in mind to make sure you understand the earnings and revenue concept, which are both for earnings. Because, for example, you may see sometimes that a company beats on earnings per share, like this case, but perhaps misses on revenue. Let's see if any companies this morning did beat on that. These are both red. These are both red. This one looks like Freightos Limited. We can show you a real example. So Freightos Limited, CRGO, in this video tutorial, they missed on EPS by about 10%. because people thought they would lose 10 cents a share. You can see it, 10 cents a share, but they actually lost 11 cents per share. It's a 10% difference. But what's key is now click to revenue, because while they estimated 5.5 million in revenue, they actually made 5.6 million in revenue. So they beat. So as you're tracking earnings, you want to make sure you understand, are they beating on earnings and missing on revenue, or beating on revenue and missing on earnings, or perhaps beating and missing on both at the same time. So this is the earnings calendar. You now have a feel for how this works, and you can get started accordingly. Now, lastly, for this video tutorial, it is time to show you the dividends calendar. Okay, before we dive into the dividends calendar, let us first remind you that earnings, revenue, and dividends are specifically, once again, for equities. But of course, if you are a macro investor, a general bond trader or bond investor, or even interested in Forex markets, you still may find some useful insights into this. As we mentioned, it's pretty interesting to know what some of the largest companies are saying and reporting, from Apple to Nvidia, but we've already shown you the economic calendar as well, which definitely applies to you. Now we're going to click dividends and just remind you that to get to the dividends calendar, it's the same thing. Hover your mouse over products, then you go to calendars, then you click dividends, and now you are on the dividends calendar. You can see here, once again, the calendar is laid out the exact same. So everything we've taught you up until this point also applies to the dividends calendar. In fact, we're going to click today, center our screen beautifully, just like that. And we can see that there are some companies that are going ex dividend today, and we can see the amount they're paying and the pay date. All right, let's quickly just remind you that the dates are up here. You can adjust the dates as needed. You can check specific countries for any equities out there around the world that are paying dividends. You've got your time zone and your embed code. And of course, as we mentioned, you can pick through specific days of the week. And one thing that we have forgotten to mention up until this point, but it's so important, is when you do have the dividends selected, or even revenue or earnings, you're going to see that it tells you the exact amount. Economic events 4, earnings 98, dividends 172. So you can really get a feel for what's happening throughout the week by using these daily cards. Friday looks like a somewhat slow day on the earnings front. Only 3 companies report earnings on Friday, but there are 120 companies with dividend events. Let's go back to today, which is Monday, and let's focus on Papa John's. We all know Papa John's. We've got dividends selected. So first of all, Papa John's pays 46 cents in dividends. That's a per share amount. So if you own 1 share of Papa John's, you are going to get 46 cents just for holding it. That's the best part about dividends. You get paid to hold. So this is really great for long-term investors. You have your ex-dividend date here. The ex-dividend date is the date whereby you have to be a holder of equity to be entitled to such dividends. August 19th is the ex-dividend. If you buy Papa John's after August 19th, you will not be eligible for this 46 cents. You have to buy it before this date ends. That's so key to say. Then when can you expect the payout? August 30th. Papa John's will pay you 46 cents for each share you hold on August 30th. Then you can also see the dividend yield right here, 3.98%. So the whole point of dividend yield is you're seeing the amount you're getting paid by the company as a dividend relative to the share price. So it looks like it's about a 3.98% dividend yield. Think about all the treasury traders or investors out there who want to get, say, 4% on their treasury. Well, you can think about dividends in a similar way. Can this company pay me my dividend for a long period of time and grow? Well, that's the winning combination. They pay you 3.9% in yield, or 46 cents per share in this example, and they grow. Now, what's really great about this specific dividend calendar is that you can sort the dividend calendar by the total amount. So there are a lot of dividend investors out there who want really high dividend yield. They want to get paid for holding an equity. And you can actually sort the entire calendar by dividend yield. So just by doing this, we can now see which companies this week are paying the highest dividends. Actually, this is we want to make sure we're totally clear here, because it's a very important part of the video. This is sorted specifically for each day. So if you're looking to check out who's got the highest dividend yield on this Monday, well, you've got your list right here just by sorting it. Some of you may know Carl Icahn, IEP. Looks like a 23%. But remember, this does not always mean it's a great purchase. You want to do your research. You want to look at markets accordingly, learn something new. Sometimes there's a reason why a dividend yield is so high. And also, always keep in mind that companies are not necessarily obligated to always pay their dividend. Markets show that sometimes companies have to cut their dividends because they just can't afford it. Maybe business is going sour. But the point here is you can track all dividends across all markets across specific points in time by using our dividend calendar. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we are just crossing 25 minutes. This has been a deep dive into how to use the calendar products on TradingView. And if you sat through this whole thing, you just learned something new about the economic calendar, the earnings calendar, and the dividends calendar, because you now know how to use these three calendars. You know where to find them. You know where to go. But most importantly, you know how to navigate them to find the events that matter to you across the economic landscape, the earnings landscape, the revenue landscape, and the dividends landscape. But perhaps the best thing that you are now armed with as well is you know how to set this calendar up. As we mentioned, setting your specific days and times, but also that now you know how to dive in to really learn something new. You know, if you are interested in following a specific event, because maybe you trade oil, look at this crude oil stock exchange. We can click into that. We've got all of the information right here before our eyes, launching the chart, seeing the overview, adding to the calendar, heading to the exact website to see this, who this company is, what the economic event is. It's all here for you, including tracking the data just like this, actual forecast prior. It's really a wonderful way to research markets. And it all starts with watching a video like this, learning something new, and then getting in here and trying it yourself, because the best way to learn, now that we have shown you in this video how to use this tool in a comprehensive manner, is to get in there yourself. If you spend a few days in here tracking the specific things you want to track across economic events, earnings events, revenue, and dividends, you will absolutely learn something new, feel more prepared, and understand what events matter to you. And you may want to add them to your calendar to get notifications, as we have mentioned before. Add to calendar. You may want to chart these new instruments or observe them in more detail. And you may just find that they are a new piece of information for you to get started. So thanks so much for watching, and we appreciate all of our viewers and subscribers. Please be sure to press like and leave us a comment, because we're always answering our viewers' comments. Thanks for watching.